All right, I believe this is game 6. Ooh, I have the border done wrong. Oh, I hope I didn't in the last video. All right, you should be able to see everything. Um, sorry about that. Yeah, so this is, sorry, gonna keep adjusting that. Great start to a video, amazing work. This is, I believe, game 6. Turdz' fifth first turn. I had started to lean second turn better, which is my natural instinct with SPCE. I'm still leaning that way, but Deli created problems with his last first turn, though Turdz did a very good job handling them. I think this is I mean, I missed 2 games of it. We've seen games 1, 2, and 5. I think this has been a fantastically well played match. Game 5 was fascinating. There were so many options. I think at some points it might have sounded like I thought there were significantly better options, and it was just that there were so many things that might appeal but might not work. Deli pointed out that in the last video I missed that Turdz, when he went in 3, set up a plus and 2, which made it even more mandatory to go 5, 5, 9, 7, and 2 than I had thought. All right, Turdz gets a plus 1. Stupid E. How does it work again? All right, where are other plus 1s possible? I think that's it. I think we don't have to worry about plus 1s. Great. Okay, what can Deli do about this? Well, he cannot take it. Can he build against it? How could he take that 9 facing down? He could have a 7 to the right, so 1797, but that doesn't set up 2. He could have a 6 to the right, he doesn't have it. He could have, that's another one that needs a 7 to the right. Or he could have a 3 to the right. Okay, Deli cannot set up in 5 against that 9. And given that he needs to set up both 2 and 5 at the same time, if he wants to make a traditional move in 5, that is not very appealing. Now, of course, I'm going to get distracted now by something not very important. He could play the Akiyama move in 5. He could say, oh, 9736 is a plus 1 in 5. I missed that. There is potential for a plus 1. But he could say, I'm going to set up 2, and 2 alone, such that you have to block 2, and then whatever you put in 2, I could take with like 1797 and 1, and that would be safe. Less appealing to go in 5 setting up 6, because if they block 6, A, it's harder to take from 9 because there's an elemental there, and B, 9 is not safe to 8. So if we were going to play the Akiyama 5 move, we'd play 5 setting up 2, but the problem is it's easy for Turdz to block 2 with 7279, and we don't necessarily have a good way to take it, though we can take that. Anything else, we have 1797 potentially landing in 5 with safety, assuming that's still in our hand. And if 7279 and 2, we could maybe play 7971 and 1. And because of the element in 4, Turdz' only capture is 9736 and 4, and we could recapture that, say, with 9826 and 7, and that is a very good chance to be safe. So in fact, I mean, this is not what's going to happen. I don't know why I'm focusing on it. I'm just trying to think about the Akiyama 5 starter so it can like get more in my head because it's not a move that's intuitive to me. A move in 5 that sets up 2 and leaves 7971, 9826, and 1797 in our hand could be very appealing. We do not have a way to do this. This is not what's going to happen. Now, a more Deli type move is to just do something like 1797 and 6. This is a kind of move I don't do much, but Deli certainly does. I don't think it's very appealing here. The point is, it's kind of this clunky, difficult move for Turdz to play around, but one thing is, Turdz could actually just take it from 5 with 9736, and there's nothing saying immediately that's terrible. But the second thing is, Turdz could just play in 2, setting up a threat in 5. Not clear how great that is, but I think actually the big problem is Turdz goes in 5 immediately. So I think a next to move, like, you try to put out clunky, difficult numbers, and it's more important to have a high number if you go in 6, facing 9, than facing 5, because it's much easier for the opponent to go in 9 than go in 5, right? If they go in 5, you know, you might have 2, you might have other things. The really important thing, and a lot of the Alva games show this, is to have a high number facing towards 9, not towards 5. Though I still think it's often a high-risk play. Here it doesn't make much sense. So this is going to be a difficult spot for Deli. One thing to consider is just going in 7. That tends to be a square he likes to go. It's not obvious to me what card would go there. So my instinct is an adjacent corner. Is you do something that forces the action. Something like, and this doesn't quite work how I want it to, but 9, 8, 2, 6, and 9. Saying, I'm creating a threat in 6 you have to deal with. You're going to block 6, probably with 7, 2, 7, 9. And then I can play something like 7, 7, 1, 9, and 8, setting up 1, 7, 9, 7, and 5. I have threats. I have a card locked in. The problem is Turdz also is 1, 7, 9, 7, and 5. And I'm not sure you have a move in 8 that sets up an independent threat that Turdz doesn't share. I don't think you do. But I think that kind of, a lot of situations that look really bad like this, there is a way to resolve by just going for an L. And if there's a way to set up that L, but I'm really not seeing it, oh, this is going to be really difficult. I'm really curious to see what Deli does here. I have no idea what I would play here. Just no idea. I don't like either of the 9, 7s, and 6. I don't think you have 5. I don't see an immediately appealing adjacent corner. I think far sides are kind of just in general a catastrophe. And here specifically, we'll just give up lots of safety for nothing. So I think 1, 7, or 9 are the most likely options. But this is really a difficult spot. The +1 is very powerful here. And I'm really curious to see how Deli deals with this. I think so far in this match, Deli has generally gotten advantages out of neutral positions, but Turdz has defended worse positions really, really well, right? Like, there's sort of, there's a bunch of sports or games to analogize this to, but there's kind of like, how well does a player perform in a matchup when ahead? How well do they do when it's neutral? And how well do they do when behind? All right, Deli does go for an adjacent corner and some kind of L optimism. But note, he has no recapture from 4. So he is saying, I have some reply to 7, 2, 7, 9, and 2. And I'm not sure he does. For instance, 9, 8, 2, 6, and 5 is his only capture in that position. But he doesn't even threaten anything there. So Turdz has ample opportunity to set up or play just wherever he wants on the board. Just grab safety somewhere with like a 9 facing down. Yeah, I think this was not a good enough answer. I think he's going to be unhappy with this. But I have no idea what he was supposed to have done. I think this was just a really, really difficult spot. Yeah, I have no idea. Now I want to find an answer, but I think it was just a really, really tough spot. Back to my previous point, and maybe we'll come back and think about that later. But if you have a good idea for a second move for Deli here, I am all ears. I might have ended up, I mean, not that what I'd play is worth a ton here, but I might have ended up with something just like 5, 5, 9, 7, and 7 and just play it. But the problem is, Turdz not only has this move, it's like it's easier for Turdz to play in 6 than it is for Deli, right? He's building out rather than blocking in. Deli's capture is a little clumsier than Turdz's capture. I'm not saying like if you go in 7 that Turdz is going in 6 and it's just a free win for Turdz or anything, but it's really dangerous because you can't grab free squares. Like if Turdz goes 6, you don't have 9, right? You can't just sneak cards into squares. Such a dangerous position. I am expecting 7, 2, 7, 9, and 2. I'm not at all sure what Deli's plan is there. It is possible 9, 8, 2, 6, and 5 holds, which would be an absolute brilliant miracle, but very dangerous. But there is a way to imagine 9, 8, 2, 6, and 5 holding. Imagine 7279 and 2, 9826 and 5. Say Turdz plays 1797 and 6, just grabbing the safety. If Deli plays, something like 5597 and 4, it's possible he's tied because it's 5-5, and the only thing Turdz can take is in 5, which means he needs to capture an 8. But with 7971 and 9736, if either of them goes in 8, Deli can capture that from 7, and he can't recapture from 9. If he doesn't have 8, if he starts in 7, Deli can block 8, and Turdz won't have a capture in 9 because he has no left. And if Turdz starts in 9, Deli can capture from 8, and Turdz only has the single capture in 7. So it is possible that this is just really, really specifically calculated out, and that he's realized he holds those endgames. That he can get the exact right cards out of Turdz's hand. And if so, I think this is just brilliant, right? But it's so hard to believe, because I think 1797 and 6 is the most obvious move. After Turdz goes 2, sorry, things outside being noisy. If Turdz goes 2 and Deli goes 5, I think 6 is just the most obvious move. It's easy to take safety. But there's so many options there. Like, you could play, 1797 and 8 and just say this is this big thing with clunky stuff lying out, and I'm keeping powerful cards for later. I don't actually think that one works either. You don't quite have the up-down sweepers. So it's possible there's not anything there, but it looks powerful. Maybe the better way is to start with 1797 and 4 rather than 6. But I think Deli can still... That does flip 5. It's important to have flipped 5. No, but Deli always flips it back. I'm not sure. Pain to calculate with E, so I'm gonna stop there. But this might be an absolutely brilliant defense, right? Deli now threatens 5597 and 2. Not the most amazing threat, because 9736 is the +1 and 5, but that sets up pluses that Deli has first access to. So I think it is enough of a threat that, unless Turdz is going to go for some setup in 7, like 9736, Turdz is very likely to block 2 here. And then the question is, does Ifrit and Bomb in 5 hold? And that's a complex question to judge from this far out. Really interesting play from Deli. The other thing I was talking about was what happens when someone's ahead, what happens when it's neutral, and what happens when someone's behind. And in general, from neutral-ish positions, to my eyes, Deli has been getting advantages. I would have said some of that is that second turn is ahead, but this happened on the Deli first turn game as well. Deli has, I think, been playing really well from neutral, which is probably the single, most impressive triple triad skill, is when a position is just clearly balanced and someone finds ways to get advantages. But in another way, I think one of the most useful skills is when behind, being able to reach neutral again, being able to get back to a comfortable position where you're not going to lose. And Turdz has been fantastic at that throughout this series. Now, Turdz has not thought he was in as big danger as I thought he was in. Or at least, Game 1, Turdz thought he was safe, and I thought he was dead, or in a lot of danger. Game 2, Turdz thought he was in danger, and I thought he was fine. We do see the move in 2. And so the question is, what does Deli have up his sleeve? And it's just really hard to imagine it's not 5. And it's really hard to imagine 5 tying, but it's also not at all obvious it loses. There's just enough 9s hanging out that maybe something can be done. Man, really difficult game for Deli. If he holds this is a spectacular hold, right? Because one of the maybe weaknesses of my play, but just one of the really difficult things to do in general, is play without a clear plan, right? And I don't mean a plan as it has to happen this exact way, but play moves that make major concessions and do not have an obvious thing in return, right? Like, there's sometimes you play a starter in 1 and they capture in 2 and you don't have 4, but you have a setup in 6, right? Like, maybe when you go in 1, if they take in 2, you have the plan to retake in 4. Maybe you have safety in 3. Maybe you have a setup in 6. But, right, you usually, if you see they can capture your starter, you have some intent against it, right? You have some plan, and that plan has obvious upside, right? That plan is, okay, they go 2, I go 4, I'm the first to lock in a card, I lock in a card, that's something nice to work with. Or they go 2, I go 3, that's safe, that's something to work with. Or they go 2, I go 6, I have set up combos, that's something to work with. Here, you could say he is locking in 2, but this is so little to work with because he is giving up 1 and 3, and he is playing a card in 5 that is very vulnerable to attacks. So he has fewer safe cards, and he is just very vulnerable to attack, right? It's so easy for Turdz to have a setup. But the thing is, I think any move Deli made was going to walk into a position where Turdz has obviously large advantages above and beyond just the card in 3. That Turd's next card is also going to be very useful, right? As we saw in this game, Turdz playing in 2, that locks in 1. Turdz was going to get not just the first good move, but he was going to get a second really powerful move, I think no matter what Deli did, and Deli's move was inherently going to concede more things, right? I didn't see a way to stop further concession, which is why I was having so much trouble choosing between things, because I couldn't find that plan where, like, you don't concede a second thing, or when you do concede a second thing, you have obvious counterplay. To me, this does not strike as obvious counterplay. Like, not at all. This strikes as incredibly unobvious counterplay. But I'm saying I didn't see anything that didn't give this kind of thing up. And I maybe you did. Again, I'd be fascinated to see suggestions for other moves here. Maybe there was a clear plan. I mean, there probably was, right? We can't use the solver on elemental, but there's usually a clear plan, though not always. For instance, Turdz won a game against Deli in the finals of the last event, where in fact Deli was lost from the draw of the randoms, and Turdz played perfectly, so Deli had no chance whatsoever because Turdz is a phenomenal player, and the hands came that way. Elemental can do that too. Like there's sometimes there's nothing, but there's probably something. That's something the solver tells us. There is probably something, and there's probably something that's vague and weird and confusing, like what Deli did, and there's probably something that's a little bit cleaner, but really hard to find, of course, if there exists. My point is, Deli found a really interesting idea here, and if it works, this is brilliant, and if it doesn't work, this was just an immensely difficult game. And Turdz has done everything right, as I think he basically just has throughout this match. I think this match has been one of the best played matches of Turd's career, and honestly, a fantastic match by Deli too, right? Like, obviously, Deli has, as much as Turdz has achieved, Deli has achieved more, and I suspect Deli has more fantastic matches, but this is a really top tier one, despite the abomination that is E. Now, someone's probably going to notice that I've called a bunch of matches with E really excellent over the years, but let's pretend that's not the case. Now, Deli looks for candidate moves more than I do. So one thing Deli has assuredly done here is he has spent a lot of time checking 9826 and 5. And if he thinks it holds, I believe he will play it, right? I think if he thinks it holds, he will do the discipline thing and play the move that holds rather than something that it's harder to figure out and he has spent less time on. If he does not think it holds, then he is probably right and he is looking for other ideas. I don't know, right? I just don't know. One thing I would note is, like, Turdz is 1797 if he sets up like a T, if Deli goes 5 and Turdz goes 8. And Deli has picked up a different card than Bomb. Is like actually sweeps anything facing down because Deli won't have a 9 up. And so that kind of forces Deli to only be able to go in 4 or 6 because Deli can't lose another card. And so if you keep the right cards there, there's so much that looks dangerous. I really haven't calculated it out properly. You, dear viewer, may well have seen much further in those lines than I have. I suspect you have, but Elemental's hard to calculate with. All right, Deli goes in 4. Okay. So one thing he's saying is 2 of your cards do not fit in 5, right? If you play 1, 7, 9, 7, and 5, I win. Or if you play 9, 7, 3, 6, and 5, I win with 7, 7, 1, 9, and 6. Now, it's possible Turdz has some insane tie there, but let's just assume that's a win. Okay, Deli is also saying, I have a threat to go in 5 myself, and that will lock up a substantial number of cards. So 7, 9, 7, 1, and 5 looks kind of obliged. Does Deli hold after 7, 9, 7, 1, and 5? Well, if Deli goes in 7, then he loses to 9, 7, 3, 6, and 8 because his only capture is in 9 and he's down 6, 4, and 1, 7, 9, 7 takes that. So Deli cannot go in 7 there. That definitely loses. Don't have to check lots of things. The next square to check is 6. Can Deli go in 6? Anything Deli puts in 6 will not capture anything. He should not play... Okay. Let's say he puts 7, 9, 7, 1, and 6. And his point is he's down 6, 4. He's given up so many things. But if Turdz plays 9, 7, 3, 6, and 9, Deli ties with 7, 7, 1, 9, and 8. And 7, 7, 1, 9 is actually phenomenal in that endgame. It kind of covers everything. Does 6 hold? Is this a miracle? 7, 9, 7, 1, 5. 7, 9, 7, 1, 6. Where is the win? You just go 8, right? Because that didn't flip anything. So you're still up 6, 4, and you play 1, 7, 9, 7, and 8, and that sets up a same and 7, and overpowers 1 thing and 9, and you only need to overpower 1 thing. Yeah, because 7, 9, 7, 1's out of Deli's hand, so we can't combo. Okay, 7, 9, 7, 1, and 5 does beat 7, 7, 9, 7, 1, and 6. Does it beat 9, 8, 2, 6? We just gotta check everything and brute force it. I think it beats it not the same way. Wow. Could that be a miracle hold? I'm having so much trouble seeing stuff. 7, 7, 1, 9, and 6 against 5 definitely doesn't hold. That makes it 5, 5, but 1, 7, 9, 7, and 7 is now safe, and 9, 7, 3, 6 will take something on the last turn, which will be enough to win. But 9, 8, 2, 6, and 6 is an incredible concept to see at distance. Does it work? So 7, 9, 7, 1, 5, 9, 8, 2, 6, 6. If the score is 6, 4 Turdz. If 1, 7, 9, 7, 7, Deli plays 7, 7, 1, 9, 8, it double captures, and Turdz only captures 1 back. Tie. If 1, 7, 9, 7 in 8, then Deli can play 7, 9, 7, 1 in 7. Oh, but that only flips 1 thing. It doesn't combo anything. All right, so that does win for Turdz. 1, 7, 9, 7, 8 wins against both moves in 6. Yeah, because it doesn't matter. It walks into the combo. Yeah. For some reason, I thought that flipped 5, but I was just being silly. Okay, does Deli have a setup in 8? He does. I mean, sorry, in 9. So is his idea, if 7, 9, 7, 1, and 5, to go 7-7-1-9 in 9. It's not good enough. Turdz can go 7 there. Does he have another setup? I don't think so. Ooh, maybe he could go 9-8-2-6 and 9 with the point that he's going to just take back with 7-7-1-9 and 8 and take 5 and 9, and if Turdz' last move's in 7, that does hold. Okay, so maybe the idea is 7-9-7-1-5, 7-9 or 9-8-2-6-9, which is the threatened 6, forcing Turdz to block 6, and then he can play 7-7-1-9-8, and that's an incredible tie. Oh, what an idea. Not setting up combos from 9, though it sets up a threatened 6. Oh, what an idea. Has he done it? If he's done it, this is spectacular. And, like, I don't think Turdz did anything wrong, right? This is not a, like, wow, you outplayed them. It's a, like, wow, you have made absolute magic on the board. All right, Turdz has not picked up 7-9-7-1. Right, I think he calculated the same things. I think he decided that wasn't working. He couldn't block 5, and so he had to set up counterplay against 5. Okay, so Deli now has a huge same plus whatnot in 5 if he wants it. It will flip 3 cards. That will put him up 7-3. But Turdz' point is he can play in 7. That will flip 2 things back, making it 5-5, and Deli has no captures. But this is just a tie, is it not? Oh, it's not a tie. It flips back an extra card. Because 5 is weak to 8. Elemental's tricky. Yeah, so Turdz wins there. If Deli takes the same in 5, Turdz has the plus in 7, and he wins due to Elemental. So Deli cannot take the plus in 5. And if Deli goes 7, Turdz can simply block 5 with 7-9-7-1. Though if Deli has 7-7-1-9 in his hand, he then ties in 9. So can Deli go, say Deli goes bomb in 7. 9-8-2-6 in 7. Turdz has another point. Turdz can now go 9-7-3-6 and 5 because Deli's only combo is 7-7-1-9 and 6, and Turdz now has the 7-1 plus in 9. Oh, damn. Oh, damn. Oh, Jesus. This looks really good for Turdz. I don't see the answer here. If Deli goes 7, Turdz can now just play 9-7-3-6 and 5. So Deli can't go 7. And if Deli goes 5, Turdz takes the plus or same in 7, and because of the element in 5, it flips 3 cards back. Turdz will have 3, which will be safe. 4, 5, 7, and 8. That's 5 cards plus 1 in hand, and Deli will have no captures because he just used 7-7-1-9 and 5. Now Deli could play something like 9-8-2-6 in 5, but that only flips 1 card. So that only makes it 5-5. Turdz will be up 6-4, and Deli has no captures. So I think he can't go 5 or 7. Is there something outrageous in 6 or something relatively normal in 9? But it's just such a problem that now if Deli ever takes the same in 5, it gets comboed back from 7. Like, Turdz can just keep 9-7-3-6 in his hand for 5 or 7. So, like, if Deli plays in 9, I think Turdz can always play 7, 9, 7, 1, and 6. And he'll flip whatever it was. He'll be up 7-3. Deli cannot take the same in 5. He could play something like 9-8-2-6 in 5, which doesn't get comboed back, but it only makes it 5-5. And Turdz is going to flip 4 at the end. And if Deli goes in 6, Turdz can play 7, 9, 7, 1, and 9. But 7, 9, 7, 1, and 9, maybe Deli can combo from 7? Because Turdz doesn't have a combo in 5, but Turdz is going to flip so many things. Yeah, there's no way Turdz doesn't get at least 6 cards there. I think Turdz has won. I think this was a, honestly, pretty brilliant game from both of them. Given just how horrible Deli's situation was, given that, and he found a really interesting defense, given that I don't think Turdz is moving 5-1 here on his last turn, and he had to find 8 instead, which I think, like, if there was nothing in 5 that was appealing, 8 is easy to find. But 5 was, or relatively easy, but 5 was very appealing, right? It's really hard to look at this position, in my opinion, and realize I don't need to block 5, I can create compensation elsewhere. Remarkable game and remarkable match. I think Turdz has won. And I think Deli will feel really hard done by the element. But, and like, maybe there's a better move than his move in 1. I didn't see why Bomb in 5 lost on his previous move, but I also didn't see why this move in 4 lost. So, and I'm probably wrong. Bomb in 5 probably did lose. It sure looks like a losing move. I just didn't see how, because I'm a lazy calculator. But I think this is an incredible victory for Turdz, and honestly, Deli has nothing to look back on and be like, I messed up. Like, sometimes the E just comes like, oh, you lose. Sorry, dude. Which is one of the things I don't like about E, obviously. Um, that said, this was and is a phenomenal match. And they both played great. One thing about E is while it means, and also random, while it means sometimes it feels like there's nothing someone could have done, it also means that a match can be just great from both sides without the loser having really messed up. Deli takes the same in 5, yeah, and just that element kills him. That element kills him. This was so well done by Turdz. I don't mean to take anything away from Turdz here. This was so precisely figured out, so well handled. I would not want to face either of these players on this rule set. I think I'd just get whomped. Yeah, just really well played. And wow, incredible by Turdz. What a good match. I wish I had caught the 2 games I missed. I feel bad for Deli because I just no idea what he should have done different. I think the 1797 and 1 idea was really interesting. I'm sure he considered Bomb in 5, but also had this move in 4 up his sleeve as an idea. And just, he found a way to make this complicated, and Turdz rose to the complications. Yeah. What a match. Definitely the match of the tournament, right? Am I missing something? I'm going to go look at the bracket for a sec. Triad Wars 16. I do feel bad for Deli. Because this is, I mean, it's just so rough when the element hits you like this. This is kind of how I feel about rares, like AA rares. Um, is you're basically like, but this wasn't taking a gamble, right? This was Turdz going, making a good hand, and the elements happen to come right. Right? With an AA rare, it feels like you're saying, maybe this just close to wins me the game on the spot, and otherwise it's a kind of poor card, but whatever, right? But like you're throwing the dice. You're being like, I hope they happen not to randomly be prepared for this corner. And this felt like a game where, Turdz got to land the AA rare, but without like suffering the risk of playing an AA rare hand. But that's what Elemental sometimes does. Um, so okay, what were the other good matchups? Midas Yevon was good. Every time Midas loses, it's a good matchup. Deli Tezuka, Deli Yevon, yeah. Stuff Smokes was obviously Eternal. Yeah, it's probably the competitor. Yeah, I think this is the match of the tournament. Congrats to Turdz, humongous win, really well played throughout. I thought he just did an amazing job of getting out of slightly difficult situations such that they didn't look that difficult. Like, there was just constantly, this is a tricky situation to deal with, and he found ways to make it be like, oh, that was not so bad. And it wasn't because Deli did anything wrong, right? Triple Triad is usually a tie, and if the defender in a position plays perfectly, it will look like the attacker hasn't found enough pressure, but often they did find all the pressure that was there, but the defender played perfectly. And I think that was basically the case in most games here, though Deli did find some pressure in some of the games. And then this game, Turdz got a really big advantage, and Deli defended fantastically. It just, that move in 8. If there wasn't the E in 5, Deli would have helped, right? Because the combo in 7 wouldn't have comboed through 8 to flip 5, and then Deli could have played safely as he did in 6, and it would have been a tie. Remarkably specific and excellent calculation from Turdz. And again, realizing that 5 didn't win, awesome work. Yeah, excellent game from both players. It sucks to lose, but if the thing you feel good or bad about is quality of play, both players should just feel like, I played great. Honestly, yeah.